Tonight, Tropical Storm Gina forms in the South Pacific near Vanuatu, and by our analysis, Yakecan has formed into a fully tropical storm in the South Atlantic. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropic Weather Bulletin for May the 19th. Well, today across the wide world of tropics, it is a bit more active than the last couple of nights have been. Tropical storms Gina and Yakecan are active in the southern hemisphere, bringing our yearly total up to 27 storms, where we average 92 a year on this May the 19th, 2022. T-Coast is code blue for Tropical Storm Yakecan with the conditions it's bringing to South America, but the northern hemisphere is quiet, and so is the Atlantic on day 13 of hurricane season. No areas of interest are active, and I know a lot of us have been looking at that system. The GFS has been consistently forming, but in recent runs it has been backing off of that scenario, hinting that there is a lot more uncertainty than some may have thought originally. On day 5 of Pacific hurricane season, it is fairly quiet here as well. No areas of interest at this time. The system is expected to form into a Central American gyre, and you may recall that term from 2020 when tropical storms Amanda and Cristobal formed from that in the early season in both basins, and that could form, or contribute rather, some tropical cyclone formation to the Eastern Pacific and North Atlantic and the Western Pacific and North Indian Ocean. They're quiet for this week, but next week the Climate Prediction Center states that this could see a increased potential of tropical cyclone formation in the northern Bay of Bengal into portions of the Western Pacific. It's moderate confidence as of now. We'll have to see how that plays out. In the South Pacific, Tropical Storm Gina has formed this afternoon or morning in this local time region, and it's forecast to track generally southwest here, bringing some conditions to Vanuatu. That chain of violence there may even try and bring some conditions to New Caledonia, but it will probably be below tropical storm status when it gets to New Caledonia. And here's Tropical Storm Yakecan, as our earlier video update confirmed it was a tropical storm by our analysis. It is moving away from the South American coastline, and as it does so, it will likely weaken. So here's the satellite imagery tonight across the Atlantic Basin. You can see it's generally quiet here. There is a nice little blow-up of thunderstorms in the southern Caribbean, but generally that's not going to really contribute to anything more than some heavy rains for Central America. There is a tropical wave moving through there. Alongside that, there is also a new tropical wave in the main development region. The one out there is not really expected to do much, at least in the short term. We'll have to see maybe if it can contribute to something in the longer term, but that's just more into the fantasy realm of models. The Eastern Pacific, there's not much to say here. It is fairly quiet here. Not much thunderstorm activity ongoing, even in the intertropical convergence zone and monsoon trough. Here's the Western Pacific floater, and this is a bit further south, once again to put more focus on Tropical Storm Gina, which we can see in the latest visible images of the day there. You can see it's got a pretty nice blow-up of thunderstorms ongoing right there. Generally, impacts that can be expected in Vanuatu is heavy rainfall from it and some gusty winds, but otherwise the Western Pacific is fairly quiet, just some general thunderstorm activity there. And same case in the Indian Ocean, we can see just some general monsoonal thunderstorms taking place, putting some heavy rain down over India and over the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. Our special floater tonight is in the South Atlantic for Tropical Storm Yakecan, and it is certainly not looking as good as it did earlier. I wouldn't be surprised if fairly soon here it loses that fully tropical storm status, as it does not look as good as it did in that video update or even earlier today. Let's get to the sea surface temperatures. The Eastern Pacific, where we typically look this time of year towards the coast of Mexico, fairly warm, 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. The Atlantic and the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico and Gulf Stream, generally 27 to 28 degrees Celsius, very warm, favorable for tropical cyclone formation if that were to occur. The rest of the Atlantic is generally warming up, and same case in the Eastern Pacific, but we can see some of that influence of that La Nina in place on these sea surface temperatures there. You see those like wave patterns towards the equator. That's generally what you see. You really see that on the sea surface temperature anomaly maps. Let's look at in just a second. Here's the northern Indian Ocean, and it's generally piping hot, 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. It always is generally across this time of year. The South China Sea is really the hot spot in the Western Pacific, 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. And the open West Pacific is 28 to 29 degrees Celsius generally. And where tropical storm Gina is, it is generally 26, 27, maybe 28 degrees Celsius there. As it tracks further southwest, it will be tracking into cooler sea surface temperatures though, and atmospheric conditions will likely get more hostile, meaning that Gina will probably not last too long. Here's the sea surface temperature anomalies, and there's that wave pattern, that La Nina there across the equator. Very neat little effect that takes place there with the La Nina. And we'll have to see how long this sticks around. It's been quite a while that we've seen that blue across the Pacific. We'll have to see. Some climatological models are saying it may stay through the entire year. Some are saying not so fast. We'll have to see exactly how that plays out. The oceanic heat content is increasing in the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. Although this time of year we don't typically see many storms take full advantage of that, just due to the environmental conditions. But it's an opposite case sometimes in the East Pacific and West Pacific, where especially in the West Pacific, it is an abundance of oceanic heat content there. If atmospheric conditions set up correctly, you could see a very strong storm. And speaking of strong storms, this time 20 years ago, Typhoon Hagibis, or I should say Super Typhoon Hagibis, was peaking as a 175 mile per hour Category 5 super typhoon. That system would end up weakening after that peak as it tracked further northeast out to sea, but you can see that imagery there from one of our Imagery Scout team members. A very beautiful image of Super Typhoon Hagibis as it was peaking on this day 20 years ago. Hard to believe, 20 years ago on this day. And now let's head over to the naming list. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for a Hone joke, see if that happened tonight, but unfortunately I hate to disappoint you all, but I don't have a Hone joke. Starting in the Atlantic though, the next name is Alex, and we'll probably have to get used to that one for at least a few more days. In East Pacific, same case here. The next name is Agatha. And in Central Pacific, I'm sorry, I don't have one, but how about this? If anyone wants to leave a Hone joke in the comments below, in my next Tropical Weather Bulletin, I may just use one of those. In the West Pacific on list 4, the next name is Chava. In the North Indian Ocean, the next name is Sitrang. And in the Southern Hemisphere, in the Australian region, we are looking out for Darien. In the Southwest Indian Ocean, we're looking out for Let Lama. And after Gina in the South Pacific, we're looking for Hale or Hale, however you pronounce that. Thank you so much for watching this bulletin, and we'll have another Tropical Weather Bulletin as expected tomorrow night.